Cops everywhere, neighbors everywhere. They were getting ready to put him in the car. And I was crying and I said, I want to hug my dad.
Brandon Sanders was 5 when police took his father away. The two had always gotten along.
I love my dad very much. I can remember my dad putting me in his lap, let me drive the car, steer the car as he was driving.
Brandon's mom received much different treatment.
I can remember being behind the couch with my sisters as, my dad was beating my mom. And all I can remember thinking as a young kid was, will it stop?
After his father was arrested, Brandon and his sisters were placed in foster care. Brandon felt abandoned by his real dad and God.
It was devastating, and I would try to pray, God, please help us. God, please save us. I thought something was seriously wrong with me, like God did not love me.
By his teen years, Brandon was running the streets. Driven by anger, he abused drugs and alcohol, committed petty crimes, and was always getting into fights.
On the inside, I just wanted people to like me. There were times when I would fight, I would completely lose my mind. I just had this rage that would come out of me.
After one of several arrests, Brandon was sent to a juvenile psychiatric hospital for evaluation. Doctors said the now 15-year-old had PTSD and was homicidal. They sent him for counseling where he shared memories he'd been trying to suppress and the source of his anger and hatred for his dad.
My mother and father were getting divorced. My mother had went on a date with a man, and I was actually with her. And my dad, the next day, came home from working out of town, and he asked me, what's your mom been doing? And I told him. And it wasn't long after that, my mom pulled up with my baby sister in her hands, and my dad met her in the driveway. And that's where, he started hitting her. He was on top of her, just beating her. I do remember a very faint memory of being in this kind of temporary shelter, and they coming and telling us your mother's dead. And the newspapers reported that he had killed her because of what I told him. That's where my anger for my father really began to generate.
Even after months of counseling, Brandon went right back to the streets. He spent the next 16 years in a drug-induced haze, hustling for drug dealers and stealing to support his habit.
When you are by yourself and you start to think about your life, you start to think about your worth. Thought about suicide a lot. Life's not worth living.
Then Brandon stole from the wrong person, a drug dealer who tracked him down, brutally beat him, and left him to die.
For a short amount of time, I got sober. And when I relapsed, I just lost all hope. I'm sick of being alive. And I decided I was going to take my life.
So Brandon, now 33 years old, checked into a dirty, run-down drug motel.
And I thought about my sisters. Would they even miss me? Feeling guilty for the abuse they went through and that I couldn't protect them. Anger for myself, because I kept going back to, I'm the one that told him what happened. I'm the one that caused this.
Then Brandon turned his anger on God.
I began to tell him, I hate you. You never gave me a life. Everything started coming out of me. My anger, my rage. And I remember just starting to say, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Crying like a baby on a bathroom floor in a drug hotel. And I started begging God to save me. And I heard the Lord say to me, now you're ready. It felt like somebody wrapped their arms around me and just held me. I fell asleep on that floor.
When Brandon woke up the next morning,
I felt peaceful. I opened the door. I heard the birds for the first time in probably 15 years. And I said, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, but I will follow you the rest of the days of my life if you'll just lead me.
3 days later, Brandon boarded a Greyhound bus to Mobile, Alabama, where he checked into a Christian rehabilitation center called Wings of Life.
I began to deal with what I call the father wound, the orphan spirit that I had. I felt the voice of the Lord say to me, you're not an orphan, you are my son. God is, He's my father. And He loves me.
After spending several years at Wings of Life, Brandon was ready to take the next step to complete healing: forgive his father. Brandon eventually married Carrie, and after finishing Bible school at Wings of Life, became its new director in 2021.
It was just this broken boy who needed a father. And that's what I was asking God to be. No preacher, no altar call, just me and God, a broken man with a broken life and a broken heart, crying out, please save me. And he did.